What's going on, friends? There have been a lot of changes with Harley-Davidson motorcycles over the years, and Harley-Davidson made a conscious decision in the way that they do business, riding their wave of success, which has really left a lot of riders and even a lot of dealers out in the cold. But as you all know, waves eventually end up crashing. Harley-Davidson has really forgotten who helped them get to where they're at today. And it is no secret, I know a lot of you feel this way, Harley-Davidson has just pretty much absolutely turned its back on a big majority of their customers. And I know Harley-Davidson doesn't feel like that's what they've done. They feel like all these customers are done and out of motorcycles, but that could be further from the truth. Harley-Davidson, in building its empire, they absolutely bet on the wrong horse for the long term. Harley-Davidson chose to focus on customers that may or may not even be lifetime buyers or repeat buyers or even ride another Harley-Davidson ever again after their first one. And to make matters worse, on top of everything, Harley-Davidson shifted their focus from their actual customers to a customer base that they could theoretically build, which didn't even exist. Guys, please don't forget, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. Harley-Davidson used to sell motorcycles to people that actually love motorcycles. They love to work on them. They love to do everything and anything to these motorcycles all themselves. Now, years ago, we could argue if that was just out of pure want to or just out of absolute necessity, especially on some of the older bikes from Harley-Davidson's past. But I will say that did create some damn good mechanics that came out of a lot of little garages all over the world. Now, the Evolution engine was great for Harley-Davidson. This brought Harley-Davidson to the masses. This engine was stone cold reliable, well, for the most part, but what it did was it gave a Harley-Davidson to people, it put a Harley-Davidson in people's hands that they didn't necessarily have to work on all the time, well, or quite as much. Now, I guarantee you can ask anybody, or maybe even yourself, that if you owned a shovelhead back in the day when the Evolution engine came out, most people are going to say something along the lines that, I had a shovelhead, my buddy had an Evolution, and I started noticing that he wouldn't have to work on his bike all the time. I was having to constantly maintain and do things to my motorcycle to keep it going, where that Evolution, he hardly ever had to do anything to it. Now, this was a good thing. Harley-Davidson had finally put out a motor that was reliable, you could jump on it and ride it, and you weren't having to make as many little adjustments and constant tweaks to the bike. You weren't always having all the little gremlins that they had with the previous year's motorcycles. It's a good thing because that spread far and wide in regards to Harley-Davidson and getting more people on the bike. Now, while that was a great thing, that's really kind of led us to where we are today. Suddenly, everybody wanted a Harley-Davidson. They're reliable, you can jump on it, ride it, you don't have to mess with it quite as often. Now, while this is all great in theory, what Harley-Davidson did with this wasn't so great. I mean, I get it, they were going to build customer base, sell motorcycles, but it was at this time that Harley-Davidson really kind of quit selling just motorcycles, and I feel like they really started to focus on selling you a lifestyle. So Harley-Davidson was not only changing their reputation from unreliable oil-leaking motorcycles, but they were changing the company image as a whole and who they wanted as a customer. Now, by selling you a lifestyle, Harley-Davidson started selling you merchandise, t-shirts, boots, anything you could imagine with Harley-Davidson all over it to go along with your brand new motorcycle. Hell, if you didn't even have a Harley-Davidson, it was still cool to buy the merchandise. Harley-Davidson wanted to immerse you in the Harley universe in every way possible, even if you didn't own a motorcycle. And that's when it seems like the focus really started to slip from building motorcycles to selling t-shirts. This, in my opinion, is when things really started to fall apart. Back in those days, before all this went down, you could have a little ma and pa locally owned dealership where you knew them and they knew you, and it was a great place to stop on your Saturday morning ride to go in and visit, maybe buy a few parts, just catch up on the world of motorcycles. Now, with Harley-Davidson opening up a new customer base, They basically had an influx of customers now with the new reliable motorcycles, and they were trying to ride this wave of success, and they started pushing it onto these dealers with expectations that just got more unrealistic year after year after year if you owned a Harley-Davidson dealer. These small mom and pop dealerships, they did not fit the image that Harley was trying to display of this big grandioso Harley-Davidson lifestyle that you see today when you walk into a Harley-Davidson dealer. They want that whole shock and awe effect on people. Now, Harley-Davidson not only turned their back on their customers, but they turned their back on a lot of their loyal dealer network that had sold Harley-Davidson for years and years and years to those loyal customers that were loyal to the brand, and they were loyal to their local dealership. They turned their back on them in favor of big grandioso dealers and basically selling their brand out to the highest bidder that could open these big grandioso shops, and brought in the folks that were just buying a Harley because it was cool at the time, and that was the bike to have. Harley-Davidson wanted to sell you an image and a motorcycle, and at the time, when that image wore off and people got tired of these bikes, they quit riding them and they sold them, which necessarily wasn't a bad thing. This is where you would go out and pick up a nearly new Harley-Davidson for big dollars off of the retail price, and that's kind of where Harley-Davidson ended up with this mess of a used market that they're fighting against right now, was them selling that image and those motorcycles to people that it was just kind of a fad for them. These customers that Harley-Davidson wanted to bring in, they weren't going to work on their own motorcycles. They were going to bring them into the dealer service departments. And that's kind of why Harley-Davidson today, I feel like, is really trying to make these bikes so overly complicated, you can't work on them yourselves, and it's not cost effective for you to buy the tools and diagnostic equipment to actually be able to do anything with these motorcycles in your own home garage. And as many of you know, the build quality on today's Harley-Davidsons, they're full of electronics, and they damn sure are not built to the quality that they were back in the twin cam era, even back to the Evo era. Anywhere from the Evo and twin cam on, they are not built the way they used to be. Even though we used to gripe about the way they built them then, well, little did we know what was going to happen in the future. Harley-Davidson today is really focused on trying to sell warranties and get you off of that Evo, get you off of that twin cam, get you in the dealership to buy a brand new Milwaukee 8 that's probably going to have a payment about the size of a mortgage on a small home. Harley-Davidson tried really hard to get with the times that nobody wanted with electric motorcycles and trying to bring in younger riders on basically overpriced small displacement models that they didn't ask for and nobody really had any interest in, especially the market that they were targeting. Harley-Davidson focused on anyone and everything when it came to their new motorcycles and their business model, except for the customers that were actually probably would have bought a new Harley-Davidson had they just built what they wanted to see and not go into electric motorcycles and a lot of the other crazy ideas that they'd come out with over the years. So if they just would have built what the customer base wanted and treated the customer base right, made them feel welcomed, then maybe they'd be selling some new Harley-Davidsons today. I don't know if it was Harley-Davidson trying to get with the perceived times, trying to plan for the future, maybe it was just bad management, but the only thing I know is that Harley-Davidson is absolutely suffering the consequences of their actions right now. But guys, let me know in the comments, when was the change in Harley-Davidson for you? When did you feel like Harley-Davidson really went downhill? And if you've got a locally owned dealer that ended up closing just because they couldn't keep up with Harley-Davidson's audacious requirements to own a dealership, let me know about that too down in the comments. But anyhow guys, that's all I've got for you this week. If you guys enjoyed the video, please don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. But till next week guys, you stay safe on the streets, ride smart, dodge those cars. I'll catch you guys back here next week with a brand new video. Thanks for watching.